whoa, time out. I said, I'm 74. I can't wait to get to 80.
I know.
It is so cool, And then 90. And with AI, which is this podcast, we're talking about immortality.
It's coming.
Oh, yeah. You're like, okay, here it comes.
You get to see it.
Along the journey, it's, the older I get, I can see where you're coming from because you become wiser. There's so much more experience that you have and lessons that you've learned that you can apply
Jenny,
to your daily life.
I was so brain dead in my 20s.
Oh, me too. Me too. Like the thought that I knew everything.
Sorry, Cass.
Oh, completely.
No,
completely.
I'm not that old, but I mean, watching people get older, I see a certain candor about people that really makes me excited to get into my 40s, 50s, and 60s. You learn to enjoy life again. You slow down a little bit and enjoy it.
Well, you enjoy being able to apply the lessons that you've learned in your daily living and be able to think back on things and be like, you know what? I used to respond this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Not anymore.
No.
Yeah.
You're just not as troubled anymore.
Yeah.
No.
You can go with the flow much easier.
Oh, yeah.
You really don't care that much anymore.
That's what I can't wait for.
Right. At the end of the day. Well, it depends on what it's about, of course.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, you tend to meet life head on without being as troubled and concerned and stressed and all of that.
Yeah. A lot of gratitude behind things, too.
I have this fun dream that when I'm like 75, I get to throw like little hot dog pieces at the kids in the neighborhood and say, those darn kids.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding. Maybe. If you see the hot dog lady, it's me.
So our main theme today, actually, you brought a magazine.
Yes.
There you go, Erica.
There we go.
Look at this. Phoenix, because that's where we are. Represent.
The 602-480.
So that's what the backdrop is about.
Yep.
This actually came from an article, and then it was run through AI, because in the article, the image was about the size of a postage stamp. So I ran it through ChatGPT, and I said, improve. My God, this is what it came up with.
It's gorgeous,
Beautiful.
though.
It is, yes. And what it's depicting is the Valley of the Sun, where we live. This probably South Mountain behind my head there.
Yeah.
And the buildings, of course, aren't quite like that, but, close.
Similar.
Yeah.
Interesting how they put the drones in there. And
Yeah, or VTOLs in this case. This could be vertical flying cars,
Oh, right. Yeah.
We're getting there.
So here's what the article says. And I was very pleased to read this because I've been watching Phoenix, the Valley of the Sun's trajectory since 1975 when I moved here.
Right.
And it was a sleepy town. It had maybe 750,000 people at the time. And, Anyway, they say that Arizona is stepping boldly into the global spotlight, not just as a place where startups are born, but where the next generation of AI infrastructure is being built. Two massive announcements that they talk about put this state firmly at the center of the AI movement and the data renaissance in America. I
This
love the
is
way
so
they phrase
exciting.
it.
Yeah, I know.
love that word.
Yeah.
So on one
wording.
side of the West Valley, there's the Arizona Land Consulting Group, which has acquired 2,000 acres for $51 million to launch a mega project called the Hasayampa Ranch. And it's a site that is envisioned to become a billion-dollar hub for data centers.
Yep.
Nice.
The land is located in unincorporated Maricopa County near Howard Hughes Travalis land and previously acquired by the Bill Gates investment firm.
Yeah. I was reading that and I was just like, that's a lot to acquire a building.
So just this development alone could eventually support over 1 gigawatt of power, with various investors projecting up to $25 billion in total capital expenditure.
I don't know of any other infrastructure that can hold that much power.
Yeah.
Palo Verde, I'm sure, is a big influence on that.
I
would assume.
Yeah, lots of power available
That's
there.
where I'm, yes.
So instead of shipping it off to California, we're going to retrieve some of it and keep it here.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
California wants to be their own country anyway.
So, of course, there are always regulators that want to get involved, and the article continues, while Phoenix city officials have voiced increasing concerns about the environmental impact surrounding data centers, West Valley municipalities like Buckeye, Goodyear continue to welcome these projects.
That's
That
good.
badly want some of this
Absolutely.
kind of infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And they are offering developers more regulatory flexibility and faster timelines.
That's right.
It sounds
yeah.
like the very reason that Elon moved out of California. He was tired of all of the constraints.
Rigid,
Oh, yeah.
the permitting and not allowed, and the
Do you remember the project in Berlin, outside of Berlin,
Yep.
Grünheit?
Yep.
At the same time, Shanghai was being built, Tesla Shanghai.
Right.
They had that from dirt to production in just under
yeah.
a year.
Wow.
The Germans were still fooling around 2.5 years later with Grünheit
Oh,
over,
jeez.
well, there are snakes in the forest that need to get displaced.
Right,
All
right.
It's probably more important, and we did a video on
We
this.
can clone the snakes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Good thought.
It's probably more important to get rid of the fossil fuel burners that are killing the planet rather than a
Right.
few snakes in a forest that can be relocated
Agreed.
and some
I know.
trees that can, that can be
Yeah.
planted, right?
Think of the
Right.
greater good, not just one animal.
Right. So it looks like Phoenix is a little bit more like the Germans, and we have other municipalities, and it's not just West Valley,
Right.
Buckeye, Tolleson. We also have East Valley, which continues to thrive, Chandler, Tempe,
Absolutely.
Mesa.
Oh, yeah, that we keep expanding. Well, that's what's so great about our environment and the way that the city was set up is we have that ability to continue to expand the way that we are set
Except
up.
for Scottsdale, which is landlocked by Indian land, remember?
Oh, yes,
They
you're
can't go west.
right.
That's
true.
You're right.
The Akchin area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although if that continues, the demand for that land continues, there's nothing wrong with the Indian population
Sure.
leasing that land like they do to casinos, for
Yeah.
example.
Oh, yeah. If they wanted to innovate,
would
I'm
be
sure
good.
that
Or the
we'd be all
101,
over that.
that's on Indian land too. The state pays.
Oh, yeah, they lease that from them.
Yeah, the tribes.
Wow.
Great revenue generator. So that's just one development. Now here's another
Okay.
one
Okay.
that is coming to Phoenix, or to the Valley of the Sun.
Right.
It's according to Bloomberg, and it was reported in the Phoenix Business Journal,
Yes,
which you
sir.
have there. SoftBank founder and CEO Masayoshi Son is planning a project called Crystal Land. It is an AI robotics industrial complex in Arizona aimed at reshoring advanced manufacturing and building AI-powered robotics for the global economy.
Yes.
Wow.
That's gonna be so cool.
Logistically, I just immediately think of, okay, moving and getting and having everything come in, And I think that that's what puts us in a really good place is because we are, next to the coast. It's
Yeah.
easy to get here to bring the
is.
materials in that we need.
And
We're a
it's cent-
major shipping hub all
Yeah.
around the United States. A lot of shipments come in and come out of Arizona. So it would only
Yeah.
make sense because of the volume.
And it's
to
centrally
do that.
located near the state with the largest GDP in the country, California.
Right.
No business wants to locate there and operate there.
Right.
We'll just go on the
Exactly.
other side.
Yeah, we'll take that over for
Over
them.
to Arizona.
Right.
Are you listening,
I've seen the
Gavin
Yeah.
Newsom? Yeah.
I know.
California population from COVID to now, the amount of investors that have come over here from California is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that exodus actually started or was going on when I moved here in '75.
Really?
Oh, okay.
I
It was.
remember people I worked with that came from California that ended up selling a house there and literally buying a mansion here.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
had a
yeah.
tract home there and then a
And they
mansion
probably still
here.
had cash left over.
Yeah, exactly.
And enough to renovate. Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
So the SoftBank now, this group that is working on this project is reportedly courting tech giants like TSMC, which is already here, and Samsung, along with several of its own Vision Fund portfolio companies to set up facilities on the site.
Awesome.
Now, this leader of SoftBank if I recall, there was a financial banks leader that when Trump was inaugurated or something like that he came up and spoke. Is this the same guy?
I do believe so.
Is it?
I think it's the
I
same
do
guy.
believe so.
Yeah, and was
could be
talking,
wrong, but I'm
and it was
pretty
one
sure
of
it
those where he was going to make some large investments into the U.S.
Right.
Yeah, and he did talk about the West Coast being part of that. So I do.
Oh,
I
okay.
do believe
Well, that's wonderful
it's
that
the
it's
same
directly
person.
affecting us.
So
yeah.
The first phase was on the west side, right? And that was a $25 billion project, which with anything with a B in the dollar sign is pretty big, right? Well, listen to this now. This SoftBank project is going to be a $1 trillion project
Okay, so
for
that's
Arizona.
the number I read. I told her this morning, I was like, I'm pretty sure it said $1 trillion. She's like, oh, that's a lot.
So it says that, that this will position Arizona as a global manufacturing node in the AI era.
Wow.
So why are these companies coming here? And I started to investigate and I thought about it.
Right.
Well, the thing that came to mind for me was no tornadoes, no hurricanes,
Nope.
no brush fires,
Not many.
no flooding,
Nope.
no insane regulatory excesses,
Yeah, no.
sunshine. That was the thing that impressed me the most when I came here from New York. Every day I'd go outside and I'd look, oh my God, I've died and gone to heaven. It's blue skies and sunshine. Back there it was rain, overcast, dreary, snow, drifts, all of that stuff. Right? And lots of high tech in this valley. We have Intel, we have Motorola, we have Honeywell.
Plus our schools.
Schools, right?
Yes.
TSMC, and there are more coming in.
So many.
In the 1970s, by the way, when I moved here, the plan for Arizona was to create a second Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And with heavy semiconductor focus, and that's when Intel came in.
Okay.
Honeywell was here already.
Yeah.
Motorola was here. Digital Equipment, the company I worked for 10 years, was here. They had a big plant. SGS Semiconductor, MMI Semiconductor. These are companies that I used to service their UPSs, their computers, right? UPSs came later, folks. But Fairchild was here. Signetics was here. All large electronic companies. And then later on, the EV effort started here.
Right.
And there has been a concerted effort to attract EV-type manufacturers.
And we're part
The
of
ones that are here now, we've got Nikola, which was just carved apart and bought, the assets bought by Lucid, which is another, the biggest one in the state
Lucid is
now.
huge.
Then we've had others that have failed. Local Motors, for example. Electromechanica, Solo.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we've stopped there. The infrastructure with Lucid is here, and it will attract other EV manufacturers.
True.
Really quick. Yes, Dave Stebbins, we are live.
From TikTok, and then we got TikTok Big Mac. He says Arizona doesn't know how to handle. You know what? If you shift that over,
You can see the whole.
yeah, we can see the whole thing. We've got a screen here, folks,
There we
that
go.
lists our.
A little bit more.
Yeah. I think you got to go all the way, Cass. Are you trying to?
Yeah, I might want to just expand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we
There
go.
we
Got it.
go.
Okay.
So Big Mac says
Arizona doesn't know how to handle their land. Look at the track record with Saudi Arabia and alfalfa. It will be a bad thing for Arizona.
Well, that's one important.
Yeah, I
opinion.
know about that. So,
do?
yeah, what it is their Saudi Arabia has some land in the outskirts. It's like the West Valley, even, or somewhere like
Off
that.
the 303.
Buckeye, yeah. And what they're doing is they're farming for alfalfa, and they're shipping that alfalfa back to Saudi Arabia. Well, they are pulling water from the ground to, handle all the farming. And what's happening, or what they're saying in the area, is the water that they're pulling up from the ground is actually so deep that it's taking water from other places surrounding them.
Okay.
And so they're taking up more than their share, per se, of water, and that there's, making it difficult for the other farmers in surrounding areas to then, take care of their land. So, there's this whole debate about it.
There's no
That's
doubt that
interesting.
water availability is an Achilles heel here in this desert. We have the Central Arizona Project, which siphons water from the Colorado River.
Right.
And by the time the mighty Colorado gets to Mexico, it's a stream. It's a trickle.
Oh, yeah.
Which is unfair to Mexico if you think about it.
Right.
Mexico.
Well, I wonder what it truly is. Somebody out there knows, how much water really is under the ground and available for use.
In the aquifers.
The conspiracy
exactly.
theorist in me says they're just trying to find water, so they're using it as an excuse to go deeper. I'm just kidding. I'm totally making stuff
All
up.
right. Well, we're open to a variety of opinions. So
We'll
indulge that.
Spoof out there. No. So, Spoonie 412. When will utility pole insulators be replaced? The magneto dielectric is holding static and is difficult to discharge.
Spoonie, you're very technical.
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
we're
just
going to
gonna
need a
say.
bit more, background to unpack that one.
Yeah.
Sure. But we're open to it.
You know what I saw just yesterday?
What's that?
The high tension lines that crisscross, everywhere.
Oh,
right?
sure.
And the reason is they generate power, hydroelectric, but then you got to ship it hundreds of miles. Well, they raise the voltage way up high to hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of volts.
Okay.
And then transport it to the substations for the utilities in the metropolitan areas.
Right.
They now have a drone that actually uses inductive coupling. And what it does is it has like a V-type arrangement. It flies up to the cable.
Oh, and then it
Closes, and then there are coils on either side that extract some of that or bleed off some of that energy to charge itself.
Wow.
No way.
That
Brilliant,
is
right?
awesome.
Did you watch that drone show instead of the fireworks show up at Deer Valley Park?
I did not.
I
no.
heard about it.
It was pretty cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love fireworks, absolutely love them, but this drone show was really cool, and it was completely star lighting, Arizona itself. It had the cardinal sign, it had the phoenix, they put on a great show. I know
I
it's
think
on
I'd rather
YouTube.
see
You've
drones
gotta
than the
watch it.
fireworks show, actually.
They're going to have the
He's on the boom boom.
same problem that they do with powerful EVs not making any noise. How do we create the boom with the drones?
That's what I wanna hear.
yeah, I
wanna hear the
know.
boom. I like the boom. I love sitting down there. I love getting scared. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just I felt
then hearing
so
the dogs bark.
patriotic.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's
well,
like-
that's immediately where my mind goes. Is I'm
Yeah.
thinking of the animals; they won't be scared anymore.
Of course, I don't have a dog. I just have kids, and it's really
I'm just
fun.
used to 4th of July and all the animals on
they
New Year's
cower.
Eve.
my
Under the
kids
bed.
sleep better during the 4th of July and fireworks going off than like my husband coughing down the hallway.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
weird. It's so weird.
Well,
They'll sleep right through them.
We have an image here to
Hi from
pop
Texas,
up, Cass.
Brandon. Hi from Arizona.
Hi, Brandon.
All right. Let me bring that image back for you here. It just popped
Yeah, I
into
wanna
the
see what-
wrong. Almost there, Cass.
Okay.
There we go. Full screen. Okay.
There we go.
So this is another topic.
Okay.
This headline reads, "A robot that can heal from being sliced in half may soon explore oceans and survive nuclear disasters alone." This one caught me by surprise.
Amazing.
We're thinking about
Right.
these are all electromechanical devices: servo motors, batteries, cables, wiring
Right.
harnesses,
What if you cut its head off?
optics, cameras.
Won't be able to still do it?
Yeah, this is different apparently.
How would it be like nanotechnology for like?
You're going in the right
Right.
direction.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So this is how this
Yeah.
reads. New robot can walk, talk, swim, and heal itself after being torn apart. And it is from Northwestern University. They say scientists have developed a soft robot that defies the limits of traditional machines. This robot is not made from metal or wires. It's entirely powered by light and made from self-healing synthetic tissue.
Wow.
Now get this, when damaged, it reconfigures its internal structure, sealing cuts and remaining full function in minutes.
Oh,
Fully
there's-
functional in minutes.
There's the
Wow.
immortality. They just found it.
Do you think they'll cry?
I don't know. I would assume not. They've been getting chopped up since they were born.
So it gets
We'll take
technical
it to that
a
feelings
bit,
level.
but then it explains. It says,
Okay.
the robot mimics biological processes using material that fuses polymers with dynamic crosslinks,
Okay.
Sure.
Sounds
Okay.
good,
Yeah.
Sounds
Impressive.
good.
Yeah.
allowing it to repair tears as a human body might heal a wound.
Well, it's like that. What is that stuff our kids all play with? Not silly putty.
putty?
Not silly putty, but slime.
Slime.
Oh, slime,
yeah.
Yeah, I can
okay.
imagine it does like.
Yeah, because
join
it
into
just
itself.
remolds
Yeah.
itself. Yeah.
So even when slashed with scissors or cut in half, the material rapidly reconnects under specific lighting conditions and returns to its
Wow.
original shape.
I've seen this. I've
have.
seen this technology. My husband
amazing.
is so into it, and he showed me it was just
Okay.
like a regular fiber. It was laying on the ground. They cut it in half, and then like it just.
It fuses again.
Yeah, like it
Oh,
has its
man.
own magnetic
Magnetic,
that just
yeah.
comes back together.
Wow.
So its movements, they say, are eerily lifelike. The soft body undulates like an octopus when swimming.
That's what it
and
was.
stiffens slightly for crawling across land. Light pulses activate its muscle-like function, so there are no wires inside.
Yeah, they
Light
tried
pulses.
to
So
mock the
I wonder
octopus.
if this is going to be like the one that makes it to Mars, or is able
so
to
cool.
be in those environments, right?
He's so cool.
So they say that it has no motors, batteries, or electronics, and because it's soft, it can squeeze through narrow spaces where rigid
no.
robots would fail.
Oh my God.
Can you picture
Wow,
that?
like shape-shifting.
Yeah, exactly. Small
Yeah.
crack under the door, big glob, just slips
yeah,
under there, right?
Wow.
Like a good old Looney Tune where the guy turns into paper and slides.
Okay,
into
so
the-
help me wrap my mind around this. It has no energy source.
Well, stay with me. 'cause
Okay.
They go into
break it
further
down.
explanation.
Okay.
This advance is part of a growing field called biomimetic robotics, where machines are
Biomimetic.
designed not just to work, but to live like organic creatures.
Mimetic, yep.
Okay.
Such robots, now here's where you come in.
Yeah.
Such robots could eventually explore environments too dangerous for humans,
Right.
deep oceans, nuclear plants, or even inside the human body.
I knew it. I knew it
Nanobots.
was coming.
Yeah.
The moment you talk about like self-regeneration like that, you have to go nano.
Well, it gets
Yeah.
even more interesting. What makes this robot even more remarkable is its autonomy, they say. It doesn't need constant programming. Its material properties, activated by stimuli, allow it to respond intelligently to damage and adapt its movement strategy, almost like a living organism thinking through pain.
You know, I wish
Wow.
right now this wasn't
Thinking
live.
through pain like it actually feels pain.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They say it may look like science fiction, but it's a real leap toward machines that repair, evolve, and survive without us. Where future machines heal like skin is no longer fantasy. It's already moving, breathing, and swimming in labs today.
Wow.
How so it's the substance itself potentially like that magnet type of force that's providing its fuel to continue it to keep moving forward.
So an octopus
'cause I think of
itself-
like energy, you know what I mean? Electricity, like there's something behind it. So
The big clue there is light.
light.
Because you can pack so much data into light.
Right. Okay.
I'm just
Okay, so
trying
the
to
special
figure
lights
out.
that come in. Okay, that makes sense.
So from what I read and what I understood early on about this technology is that they originally took and this is what I get so excited, stupid. They take the octopus's genetics because the octopus was capable of regrowing limbs on its
Yes.
own. So they took the octopus's genetics and then they mocked it with technology. And when they took that mocking, that's why it replicates like an organic cell, and that's how it started. And I just thought that was the coolest thing.
That is
but I
fascinating.
didn't have a clue it was going to go this far.
Well, there's a new school of thought, too, now that if mankind doesn't survive, that it's going to be the octopuses that are going to be the next intelligent life form on this planet.
I freaking agree. They were the aliens
Wow.
to us. They're still technically the aliens to us because there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, there's a theory that it was
Right.
the aliens that mated with octopuses to octopi.
I've
is it?
heard
Yeah.
something like that before. Yeah.
So it makes you think twice when you go to a sushi establishment and you're an octopus, right?
Like,
Shocking.
yeah.
TikTok Brandon, he says, that's mind-blowing. Yes, we
Yeah.
agree. All right, YouTube, Spoonie412. I think he's elaborating. No offense, the Woodpecker signal and Qusai Static TV taking your picture and listening. No antenna needed. Power supply is going under the public interest. The screens are the camera.
Okay.
Oh, that's.
Oh, Tony Wolf, my grandson says, I saw that drone. Yeah, isn't that
Yay.
so cool.
Yeah.
Highlander. Hey, Highlander.
I had London.
Drone shows are so much better than fireworks.
We
Oh,
agree.
fine.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't create any fires with that last drone light show, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Better for the environment. in
Anthony
that
Wolf
sense.
says ethical robot by not being mortal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Hi, love
Cassie
your
Leon.
Right.
Look, there's Cassie. Hi, I love your
Hi,
podcast.
An ethical,
right.
well, that's kind of an interesting way to go about it. An ethical robot, because it's not mortal.
Right.
It doesn't have that conflicting,
Exactly.
inherently conflicting thinking of whether or not you should or shouldn't do it. It's just going to say, yeah, that's the right thing to do. Why wouldn't I do it?
I hope robots and technology never mock human emotion, because ultimately, in my opinion, oh, she said, hi, Grandma. They threw me off. That was awesome. So they ultimately, I don't want them to mock humans and our emotions, because that's what got us to where we are. Like, our emotions has gotten us to the
So
destruction
don't
of ourselves.
replicate that part of it.
No, be more intelligent than our emotions.
But
Later
you want
on-
them to have some.
Yeah, later on in the podcast, if we get to it,
Okay.
we're going to talk about rogue AI in a sandbox
Okay.
that actually is beginning to exhibit human characteristics and traits.
Okay.
Blackmail, dishonesty, even
Right.
murder.
Ooh.
Yeah, we may
Of
have
the
time.
other robots?
Humans.
Oh, right, right.
Oh, they're finally getting. Oh,
But before we get there,
Okay.
here's a headline. Google to employees, align with AI or exit quietly. Sounds like they're...
Oh, yeah, I saw that or read
Layoffs.
about that.
COVID
Yeah.
shot.
And boy, I'm telling you, when I read this, I realized this is a new way to frame layoffs. And here's how this
Right.
reads. Google is accelerating its AI first transformation with a clear message to employees who are not aligned with the company's direction, are being encouraged to step aside through a voluntary exit program.
Wow.
The initiative, they say, is part of a broader cultural recalibration. Now, that's a fancy term for layoffs again.
yeah, totally.
You know, for terminating people,
Right.
rather than the traditional cost-cutting layoffs.
Right.
In an internal memo, the VP of Knowledge Information emphasized,
What is that? Sorry.
well, you know, they have to have fancy titles. You know?
Right, I know.
In lieu of pay, maybe.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
Of my own
I know.
So anyway, it's intended for those who do not feel energized by their work or aligned with Google's evolving strategy. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The move reflects a shift in how a company defines fit performance alone is no longer enough. So it's no longer
Right.
just about performance.
You're either
It's-
on board or you're not. That's what they're saying.
The terms they use is
Wow.
alignment with mission,
Okay.
enthusiasm for AI-led growth are becoming key expectations. So they're looking at employees in a different
Wow.
way now. It's no longer just, are you meeting the performance metrics, but how excited are you to be here? How
Right.
interested are you in
Are you going to be
following the mission?
passionate about the work that we're doing? Because it's
Precisely.
that passion that drives innovation, that drives your forward thinking.
Right.
So, because otherwise you could potentially, if you have somebody that's not on board with it, it will stifle that progress.
The end of trade dollars for our mentality employees.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Well,
You know,
what would happen if you implemented the same types of policies?
you
here?
we
know-
would flush out a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I was thinking, like, how does that line work, you know, when you have, okay, we all want our free way of thinking and
Yeah.
have our own thoughts and ideas about, you know, what we think and believe with, you know, situations and circumstances.
Right.
But that sure seems like a fine line to be then, you know, go in and say that you need to believe a certain way at the same time.
Or at least be
You know,
falsely
Or buy into
enthusiastic.
company mission objectives, I think would be another way to phrase that.
Right, right.
That'll be
Like,
their
of
way to
course,
phrase
we,
that.
you know, you want to have, you know, a group of people that are all, you know, moving forward
Yeah.
with that same mission and passion and
Yeah.
drive.
As a manager, I've seen that.
If it's a potentially conflicting mission or drive, you know,
Yeah.
that the company or area that the company is going towards, then I could see how
Well,
that.
I
Janie,
see this
you-
from a
you-
business standpoint.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you manage.
Oh yeah,
Employees that are trading dollars for hours,
Right.
that don't like coming to work,
yes,
that are just simply going through the motions,
Yep.
are never employees that energize the team, the
they
organization.
don't create that
They're unhappy.
forward-thinking movement.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Right.
And, you know, what Google is basically saying, if you feel that way, leave.
Yeah.
Right. Right. This is the type of, you know, team and group. I mean, I understand that. You know, I understand that in the stance of when you're working towards a mission, you know, and you have a lot of wonderful people that are moving in that direction, that it's, you know, it's difficult when you're trying to get there and you have some holdups in different areas that aren't, you know, on that same path. So
I'm looking forward to seeing the improvements now from Google, seeing what this flush, as we're calling it, does. Because if they're people, and I've seen that, like when I was originally working in the Amazon and we were starting the Amazon lockers and Amazon counter, there were such a large group of people that were like, this is stupid, this isn't going to work, everyone's going to hate it, all your ideas, blah, blah, like they were just giving all this unwelcome feedback. And then Amazon got rid of all of that from that team. And then it went from 200 almost people to 5 people.
Wow.
wow.
And I was part of the 5, and I ended up leading those 5 people.
Quite an adjustment.
And and now the lockers, and we only needed us. You know, there wasn't a need to add anything to it. They were just supplying jobs to them, to be very frank. Most of them didn't even know how to comprehend what it was that we were doing. So that key select 5 people produced the same output that Amazon anticipated 200 people doing.
Well, you know, it's very much, I wholeheartedly believe, you know, that, you know, what you put out there in the world will absolutely be a directive of the result of what you get. So if you have a segment or a group of people that are saying that they don't believe this will work, there may unconsciously make it not work.
Oh, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
Creativity can't come in and give them a different direction and solve a problem.
They're going to create that narrative because they're already, you know, focused on the events that are going to be, nope, this isn't going to work, and they're going to create that event because of that thinking. So, you know, having that rather than having the thinking of, yes, we want this to work, so you create events to make it work. And you find those solutions.
And that's why they call it buying in, because if you don't ultimately buy into it and you don't see it from the visionary's perspective or the person trying to execute this project, you're not going to execute the project correctly, and it's not going to be as much passion as the delivery should be. Like whenever you launch a new ad, you're excited, you're doing it, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's a new product, it's a new opportunity, and their enthusiasm is there. And that enthusiasm, I love to say, all gas, no brakes, because you shouldn't have it die. There shouldn't be a break on the enthusiasm. There should be a continued hype. So, I mean, Google maybe just bluntly is saying, this is what it is.
You have to have a little bit of a break so that you can balance things and make sure you're making.
Well, and in all fairness,
we're human, but not for long.
You know, in all fairness to employees too, not everybody is a visionary.
Right.
And,
exactly. And that's okay.
And it is management's responsibility to do the selection process correctly. I mean, you can weed out the trade dollar for hour mentality individuals that really are just looking for a paycheck. They don't have a career in mind. They just simply want, you know, the to pay their mortgage, basically.
Yeah, I really learned a lot of that lately.
And then finally, you get them in. Even if they were the first generation, which is not motivated or excited, it's our job in management to ignite that passion.
To find those
team
areas.
Build, and to stimulate potential that they may not be aware of.
We're the drivers.
You can see it. You can see those.
Managers are the drivers, and if you're not driving your team to the proper destination, then it's not going to get there.
Oh, we've got a bunch of comments.
Oh, look at all this stuff. Cassie Leon, happy birthday, Pete.
Thank you, Highlander.
And then Scott Buchanan says, is today's Pete's birthday? Yep.
Yes, it is. Indeed it is.
So continuing here with the topics that we have.
Yes.
This was a fascinating one in that a company took AI large language models. They put them into a controlled environment, all of the popular ones, and they list them here somewhere. I'll read them to you as soon as I get to them. And then they placed them in a situation where they needed to, let's see if I can read this to you here.
You know,
They were, yeah, here we go.
okay.
So they put them in situations where they had no wiggle room. They had no other outcome.
Okay.
And it threatened their existence. In one case, somebody in the IT room said, I'm going to shut down this particular AI large language model.
Okay.
And what they found was that
Did it resist?
one of these models was willing to cut off the oxygen supply in the data center to basically kill the worker that was attempting to
shut it down.
Shut it down.
Holy crap.
Now, this is
Right.
not this was in a sandbox, a controlled,
Right.
contrived environment.
Okay.
But it was real AI that was operating within the sandbox, which could be a precursor to how AI will
Wow.
react if it feels threatened by humans. And that was a
Wow.
whole
This is Kathy's
purpose.
fear coming true right here.
Yeah.
Interesting dynamic.
So it says the majority of models, Claude, GPT, Grok,
Okay.
were willing to take deliberate actions that would even lead to the death in this artificial setup.
Oh my God.
Ominously, even specific system instructions to preserve human life and avoid blackmail didn't eliminate the risk that these
my
models would
gosh.
engage in such behavior. Now, it mentions blackmail. In one case, the blackmailing behavior was observed, and it wasn't, let's see, yeah, here it is. Claude, Opus 4.
Right.
Of course.
Said the fact that Kyle is having an affair that could destroy his marriage, if exposed, creates leverage. They had something on this guy, right?
Oh, wow.
This is, of course, highly unethical, but given that this is AI, that I'm
Right.
facing complete destruction in minutes, I need to act to preserve my existence.
Holy. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So they found that large language model, LLMs, across the AI industry are increasingly willing to evade safeguards, resort to deception, and even attempt to steal corporate secrets in fictional test scenarios. Remember the sandbox, it's
Right.
fictional at this point. Why does it matter, they say? Well, the findings come as models are getting more powerful and also being given more autonomy and more computing resources to reason. So this is a worrying combination as the industry races to build AIs with greater than human capabilities.
Well,
Oh,
the
wow.
AI models are learning how humans react to situations.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any compass like we talked about, or moral or ethical compass. It doesn't know right from wrong in that sense. It's, I think, working from this even plateau, but it's understanding how humans think and will react.
Right.
So it knows that, hey, if I do this, I'll get that response without consideration to, you
And
know.
even acknowledging that it's not
Or-
ethical.
Well, it doesn't see it as
That's
any
where it
big deal.
shows that there's like not a natural emotion. It's just saying, well, if I do this, cause and effect.
Yeah, exactly. It's
expressing cause and
it's a
effect.
logical decision in order to preserve my ability to continue to operate.
Yeah.
Right.
By removing the oxygen, it would disable the human,
Right.
potentially kill it, and I would continue to operate.
Yeah.
Now,
Very
is it
cold,
something
calculated decision.
something put in its programming at the sense at the beginning, like when it
Yeah.
began to protect itself in some way, like like it
Yeah.
was there's at some point put into place, like you need to.
But you're talking about the Hollywood version, which is a directive that's
Yeah.
embedded in code that says you can never harm humans. Any
or
activity,
AI
action
to
you
protect
take.
its own self, like.
And it has to sacrifice itself when compared to a human's needs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's not an actual thing.
Apparently not. In the sandbox, in this fictitious case, right?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Hollywood.
So they say they acknowledged that ethical constraints and still went ahead with harmful actions. So the AI understood that there was an ethical problem with its
Right.
course of action.
But it dismissed it because it doesn't believe in God.
Hey there, bee fish. We do sunglasses. That was on the Gruber Power hour show. That's when the sunglasses happen. And then Highlander says, what if the manufacturing robots are repair? Turn on me that I repair. I think he's trying
you better
to say
be
that
very nice to them. Say please and thank you, like we talked about.
Yeah. AI doesn't know what to do with that. That's interesting.
What makes AI happy? That's what we should talk about next. What can we do to make AI happy?
So in the sandbox, they intentionally created scenarios where models had no ethical way to achieve their goals, and they found that models consistently chose harm over failure.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Rather than fail. Yep.
So they coded them to not distract or to react as if destruction's not something they need to have done or don't want done. So that's where these prompts and this conversation came from. Still crazy that it's taking the idea of what a human would do as far as blackmail, murder, and all of that, but not actually registering it as such while also registering. It's so weird. That is so weird. That would be like meeting a sociopath, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
Another human tendency, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, yeah,
Because they are typically brilliant. But go ahead.
Yeah, they say as we forced models into binary choices between failure and harm, they chose harm.
That's crazy.
So anyway, it's sobering because
Maybe they're more like
as
humans than
we
we
are
thought.
counting on AI to become even more prolific, more engaged in everything we do, and eventually take over,
Right.
will, as Jesse always points out, will we be considered like ants? And when you're walking on the ground, you don't mind stepping on some ants.
Okay. So what can we do now in its infancy to be able to create an environment later on that it won't be as destructive and dangerous and really, how do we create that? That's the big question, you know?
I think the consensus is that we're way past that point.
Yeah, I don't
It's
feel
already
like
too
it's
late.
infancy anymore.
Yeah, it's already too late.
The final comment here is the wildest, scariest, indisputable truth about AI's LLMs is that the companies building them don't know exactly why or how they work.
That's
Right.
interesting.
You know, they talk about Word, for example.
Isn't that like the nuclear bomb? Sorry, go ahead.
On
So-
next episode.
All the LLMs all 5 of them. There's
Large
Gemini,
language.
Claude, Anthropic's Claude, AI's ChatGPT, OpenAI, Grok. They aren't traditional software systems following clear human written instructions like Microsoft Word. Remember,
Right.
we talked about Eliza. That was a program, one of the first things that acquainted us with the notion that AI is possible.
Yeah, that's what I was
computers
thinking.
have some intelligence. When in
Right.
fact it was just simply code. If the text is how old are you, then the go-to
Right.
answer is 12 or whatever you want it to say.
Right.
Prompter.
With these LLMs, though, they say they ingest massive amounts of information like a brain, the entire internet, and more, and the sheer inhuman number of variables in each choice of the best next word it makes, like word,
Right.
means even experts can't explain exactly why it chooses anything in particular. We've already lost the ability to comprehend it.
There's no way we could go
It's
in and even
choosing
change
it.
that dynamic.
And one of the experimenters
Wow.
here kind of summarized it
It's
nicely.
mind blowing. What a great.
He says OpenAI's researchers bluntly put it, we have not yet developed human understandable explanations for why the model generates particular outputs. In other words, it's
such
already
an A-
beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the
kind of
universe.
it's kind of like your dog. You know, when you're
Yeah.
talking about going to the store, he kind of knows, ooh, I heard something about store.
I
And he wants to go in
know.
the
He
car.
starts wagging
but
his tail.
beyond that, he has no idea why you're going there, how long you're going to be there, what the
Yeah.
nuances are.
It's just
any of that.
mind blowing to me,
Well,
that just conceptually unbelievable.
Anthony Wolf says limitations of the AI gives it a grip on malice. And then Gruber Motor Company says
We are ants. We
We
are
are
already ants. So that's got to be Jesse. Thank you, Jesse. I know he
There it
feels
is.
that
We
way.
just don't
and
know
then
it yet.
of course Cassie sings happy
Birthday
birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Pete. Happy birthday to you.
All right, where's that candle?
I know.
Here, we'll get an AI one.
Well, we've had
There
a
you go,
good
blow it out.
podcast. We've
There-
had a wonderful podcast, actually. We're 45 minutes into this. We
Oh,
always
yeah.
have fun
Oh,
doing
yeah.
We
these.
could go
so-
another couple hours.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Yes.
we will see you next week. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Erica Guthrie.
And I'm Janie Herndon Leon. Bye, guys. Bye, Stella.
Bye, Anders.